First item is to approve our previous minutes. Anyone have anything to say about that before we call for a vote on the minutes of the meeting? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Next, we're going to do some updates for the APD. Would you like to take that over?
Sure. I'll start with just internal business with promotions and staff reassignments at the aerial view. We have recently promoted 2 captains, 3 lieutenants, and 5 sergeants. Those will be taking place. With my transition to interim chief, we've brought back retired Captain Chris Rees-Young. He's going to be serving as an interim deputy chief, filling my role as operations bureau. So we've promoted to Captain Mike Yelton, who's going to be over patrol. Joe Silberman, who's going to be over admin services, and Captain Gary Gudak's still going to be in the CID support ops where he currently is. The others are Lieutenant Tammy Flanagan Bryson has been promoted. She's going to be over the traffic safety and animal services unit, and she's moving out of recruitment career development as a sergeant, and we will be moving Lieutenant Chuck Sands into that unit, and also Lieutenant Mike Lamb will be coming out of recruitment career development and be reassigned to the Charlie district, which is downtown, as a district patrol lieutenant. Lieutenant Brandon Moore will be serving as the patrol XO and executive officer, and Lieutenant Mike McClanahan will be the patrol commander for the Baker district, where he was a sergeant and will have been serving as a patrol lieutenant, so he will stay in that role as well. We promoted 5 sergeants: Sergeant Tracy Crow, Brian Hogan, Brett Faust, Josh Veridal, and Ray Ward. Veridal was a CRO, Ray Ward was on patrol. The other 3 are coming out of our criminal investigations units, and they will all be going to patrol. A lot of experience coming out. They're going to be going into training for about field training, supervisory training, and skill sets, and shadowing other sergeants. And they will be in that role training for about 4 weeks. Additionally, doing some in-service training on risk management, HR, and personnel. So probably mid-February, they will be assigned to their patrol district shift, and most of those will be going to nights. If not, I think maybe all of them, but it'd be good. A lot of experience and varied service for those folks. There will be some other shifts within that. One of which relates directly to this is with Lieutenant Lamb has been on this committee for quite a while. I think he actually started when he was a sergeant in housing. So we will be replacing him with Sergeant Josh Mindel, who is currently a public housing sergeant. Be a good addition to this unit, or to this team. And Captain Gudak will be filling in on as an executive representative on this in my stead as we go forward. And then myself and the other deputy chiefs will pop in as needed. But just a couple of key shifts for this group, and the major shifts with the recent promotions within APD. And then if we want to hit the update on the community liaison program, spoke about it a little bit at the last meeting. The program itself is an effort to ensure that our command level supervisors, which are lieutenants and captains, are assigned to various community groups and or neighborhoods throughout the city. There are 14 staff members assigned to 15 groups. Lieutenant Jackie Stepp, who is west, has two groups that she represents. And I'm not going to read all those. You should have a list, and they're listed up there. But The key points, there again, to emphasize the main focus is, while we do have a lot of officers and various officers and community resource officers represented in attending meetings, we wanted to double down and ensure that there's an command presence as a sounding board as well. So we've pointed that. That started off in October of 18. So I have and we're reporting out monthly activities. So in the month of November, we had, of those 14 staff, spent 33 and a half hours, attended 13 meetings. Officers, in addition to just the key representatives, were 24 attending those meetings, and roughly just shy of 180 residents attending. So it is looks like it's going to be productive for us, and this is just as kind of what we talked about initially. This is one segment of our larger efforts to start to enhance our community engagement. And this, there again, I think with all these 15 groups that we've had representation within APD. This is just making sure that we have the command presence to bring items back to us and also to share from the command perspective at those meetings. So I think going forward, it's going to continue to do well. The requirements for our staff that are attending is to report out monthly. So even if the group does not meet, they're at least establishing phone contact or having some contact to report out. And naturally, as we proceed with this, it'll be kind of an ongoing issues. What have we done, or what do we need to focus on? Will be some of the efforts that come out of that, and we will enhance those efforts as we move forward. Certainly, the goal is to expand our connections across the city, and don't need to stop at these 15 groups. These were just some of the ones that we knew we had some existing contacts with, and kind of spread around the city. There are I think I failed to introduce Jamie at the last meeting until the very end, or excuse me, Jerry until the very end, but she is here and helping me stay on track again. But one of the goals with her is to ensure that we're tracking the various groups and committees that we are meeting with throughout the APD, and there are numerous. So we're developing those lists as well, and to help us focus and narrow down some other things. Other community groups that are currently meeting that we are represented with, that we may have left off or may need to enhance our efforts with as well. So we're going to continue to look at that. And then just the larger APD community engagement, which is also going to be combined with the larger City of Asheville community engagement process through CAPE and other city departments.
Wayne, you mind if I interrupt you for a question real fast? Sure. Because I know you're reporting on quite a bit. I don't want to get too far down and lose it. The liaisons, the liaison list that we have, I think it's all there. Is that even reflected with the promotions and move-outs? So
it is updated with the reassignments.
Okay, that's great. And keeping track of the data, meeting with groups. To my knowledge, this is the first time it's ever been done, right?
Yes. Yeah, we just started that program in October as far as the community liaison with the commanders. Yes.
Right. Are there, the type of meeting, is there anyone keeping notes? Is it posted publicly? Is there any blogs of it besides just reporting here? Is that like a next step thing?
Well, it's the organization's meetings,
Yeah.
it's not our meetings.
Right.
So my understanding from the meeting with the officers is they're all varied.
Yeah.
Some meet in bars, some meet, in resource centers.
Right.
So that's really up to them. Now, the liaison completes a report that reflects the concerns that were just the APD part of it.
Right.
The concerns that were raised. And we're getting better at delineating and detailing those. Right now it's free form, so it's coming in very varied, and some write 2 sentences and some write 3 paragraphs.
Right.
So we're working on making it more consistent, how we're receiving the data. So some of the concerns will be shared and the efforts to address those concerns.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I can just see, people, someone could see that and think those are APD initiated meetings and then open meeting violation laws,
Right.
rip or keep, but it's not y'all, that's just good information.
Right.
So,
And
thank you.
Yeah.
certainly those are the community meetings that we're attending.
Yeah. Thank you.
questions, or was that?
Okay.
Okay.
You're good.
So I think that's all for my updates. The only thing I think you all have the Coffee with the Cop flyer. It snuck up on me. It's tomorrow at noon at the Well Played board games. And that, again, that's just Coffee with the Cop, where we'll have our community policing, crime prevention officer, Ryan Justice, coordinates those, but we'll have officers work in the district or in the area, as well as there'll be some command and executive staff in attendance as well. And it's we've done, I don't know, at least probably about well over half a dozen this year that we in various geographic locations throughout the city. So I think it's just a good opportunity to meet the officers, come out to a casual environment and have casual conversation and talk about citizen concerns and talk about the police department, talk about good things, bad things, and just a educational and informational session. Encourage you to attend. And they're not all at noon. It's breakfast or later in the day, so the hours vary as well. So. And I think that is all I have.
I know everybody's asking you about the search for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So I gotta ask.
There's a surge. Now, I spoke briefly with City Manager Campbell earlier this week. I think it was Monday. I know we haven't got an update since then, but I know we are working. We, as a city, are working to identify the vendor that we're negotiating with to conduct the search. I haven't heard if that's been finalized yet. I know they had one identified, they hadn't finalized yet. So that should be coming soon. Initially, I think the goal is to have that search begin as soon as possible. And realistically, I think the 60, 90, or not realistic, I think ideally 60 to 90 days. Wade's humble perspective is realistically 90 to 180 days, is just depending on the community engagement and how involved it's going to be. But you know, my first one was 9.5 months when I was interim, so it was rather long. I certainly don't anticipate this going that long. So I think 3 to 6 months is fairly reasonable.
That's great.
But that is moving forward, and I'm sure I know there will be that pushed out to the public once we get that finalized.
But even that's great information. Thank you, Wayne. We'll move on to unfinished business. Councilman Keith. I'm sorry, I am really tired. I apologize. We had asked for a couple things from him. One was a motion for a stipend, and you brought that to the board, and a couple things to report back on.
Right, so yesterday at our boards and commissions meeting, we had that on our agenda, and just a few highlights. It was a good conversation between the Vice Mayor and Councilman Haynes and myself. We did not make any decision on anything as a board. What we did come up with was there was a robust conversation that some council, that specifically the Vice Mayor had a issue with. I think when we had the conversation, when you all had the conversation here at the last meeting, it was specific to the housing seat, I believe, and everyone else had declined to receive any sort of stipend. And the Vice Mayor brought up an issue that she felt like that if you offered one, you would have to offer all, and not only this board. She started talking about across all boards and commissions, and so we kind of had a couple of conversations on that, and then we had a different conversation on what boards and commissions under the city actually get paid. There are a few, of course, it's like the school board and ABC and a couple of others, but they're not funded by the city. And so we were trying to make a decision. We almost came down to a vote of going ahead and making it happen for this specific individual. And the conversations kind of sprouted around barriers of individuals in certain communities to be able to serve, how to lift some of those barriers and bring encouragement. And then while we were having these conversations, we also found out that, you know, if you're on certain committees, you get bus passes already. which was new to some members of boards and commissions. And so that came up. And so the conversation that Gwen had sparked about, well, if you do something for one, you have to do for all. It was more of, she wasn't saying that you couldn't do it for this, but I came back and said, well, why do we have different folks on different boards receiving bus passes that have a monetary value, and this might, for someone to say this isn't appropriate to monetize this seat. And so then we decided, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we need to look into seeing what can we do to offer the bus passes for everybody. And then Councilman Haynes came up with an idea of, across the board, offering scholarships that would provide a stipend, not for everyone, but for certain socioeconomic levels. And you could apply for it, and that's all across the board, all boards and commissions. So what we came up with, in short, I won't bloviate too much, but what we came up with in short was, we felt that it was of interest for all the council members to know about this and for them to weigh in. So what's gonna happen next is, boards and commissions is not gonna vote on the stipend. We're gonna explore the bus pass issue. We're gonna explore the scholarship issue. We're gonna explore even just paying board members possibly. But that will be deciphered out to council members in what we call council check-ins. So each council member gets a check-in with city manager and staff on certain issues, and it will be put on their agenda, and they will be given the highlights and high points of our boards and commissions meeting, and they'll be able to weigh in. And once that gets back to boards and commissions, we'll be able to see where every council member's temperature is. Now, granted, we didn't necessarily need that in order to make a decision, but we felt like it was a pretty large decision considering that the conversation bloomed a little bit further than just CPAC. It started to branch out to all boards and commissions. So I would expect to have more information back at the next meeting and an update on where all the council members are at. And if we hold our boards and commissions meeting before this meeting, we may actually have a decision. So I may have to send out an email to all the members here to kind of get you up to speed before the meeting. So we'll see how that plays out. If you have any questions in the meantime, just feel free to ask.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, just remembering us discussing, I think it was 2018 budget, wasn't there a line item for diversifying committees and commissions?
Don't get me to tell you a fib about line items in the budget off the top of my head.
And I just say that because of when you mentioned that some people are paid, but it's because those positions weren't funded by the city. That's the only thing that's sparked that.
Yeah, we don't, the city doesn't currently pay for any stipends for any boards and commissions. So, except for when we started talking about in our meeting, you know, the bus passes, which I said was a monetary benefit. It has a monetary value.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if we're talking about monetary value, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that every person serving on board gets a pass to a basketball or baseball game.
Yeah, it's a pass to SoCon, and or you get to choose to go to the nature center. We brought that up as well.
Yeah.
So there was some back and forth volleying as far as what we should and shouldn't do, and we very well could have made a decision yesterday and just left it alone. But when we started having these different conversations in different areas, who gets paid, who doesn't get paid, who currently gets benefits, who doesn't get a benefit of a bus pass, you know, all that different stuff, we felt like, okay, maybe other council members need to kind of hear about it, weigh in, and then we can come back and make a decision as a board. So we don't need the whole council to make a decision, just.
I understand what you're saying. It's just one of those things, you know, I think we're looking at what it takes to be fair and equitable, you know, across the board and to everyone to do that. If we're looking at current monetary value packages and benefits that anybody gets, I for one be willing to forego my Southern Con tickets if it would help get that passed.
I think you can keep your Southern Conference tickets,
Okay.
or the Nature Center. I think what my personal opinion on, and I don't know where it's going to go, but my personal opinion is it'll probably end up leaning toward one of these others or both. Councilman Haynes' suggestion of a scholarship that is across the board for all boards and commissions, and people can apply. We set aside a certain amount of money, people can apply, and that's it. And or that plus a bus pass, and we just have to see what what that looks like. So I think we'll get something. It's not that I don't think we will have a situation where Boards and Commission comes back and says, no, not going to do it. I just think it's going to be, what's the mixture and how can we be fair, equitable, yada, 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 to everybody.
I understand. I mean, this conversation usually sparks something, so there's our.
I'll try not to make it longer than one more meeting, so.
All right. Well, we appreciate that, Keith. Thank you. Let's see. Also, there's a update. We have a position for our South seat, and we received some applicants. Those went to boards, commissions, we voted on, but those were not filled at this current time. So I want to encourage everyone, if you know anyone that lives in the South District, to please apply. You know, it's not always easy finding people to serve on these committees, but so please spread the word with anyone you know, and it's always great to have, to think about it just like you would any hiring practices, the committee should reflect the community, so diversity in every way, shape, or form.
I do have one question on the vacancy list. As I read this, is that we do have 2 vacancies, but must be a housing authority property resident and must be from the South District. So they both openings have the same requirements.
No, the vacant South is just someone who lives in the South District. The vacant housing authority resident is only someone who lives in the housing authority. We have 2 vacant seats.
Well, it reads as the word "and" in there.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
a typo.
Yeah, I think the typo. I think the end should be removed.
Okay, yeah, I don't see where there's.
It's just an old editor speaking up.
Yeah.
I can see how it's read from that too.
Yeah, I don't see what you're talking about in there, but I'm sure that's correct. It's just a typo.
I can let the person know who does this.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to attention, because somebody looks at it, they might think the same thing. So, oh, it's on the local leader one. Okay. I didn't look at that one. That's good to know. Okay, we're gonna do updates from our subcommittee, the planning session committee, which is myself and Blake. Blake put together some great documents, and they were very thorough, and I have not finished my review of that, and I apologize. I wanted to have it done before we came back, but there just some life things came up between work and here, and I had to make that time commitment one way or another, so I missed that, and I'm gonna work on those and try to get it done as soon as possible and get it to the committee members, and Wade, you'll definitely, you know, spoke before, I definitely need to get the APD buy-in and everything on what we're gonna propose. So I have nothing to add at this time to that. You have anything to add, Dan?
Not much. I think we have a good structure in place, and I looked at legalities of the issue. So I think legally we can create the CPAC mediation board. The issue with the contention, I think, is in the teeth of, you know, and I think that's the resounding issue. But otherwise, I think we're in good shape to, you know, go forward with it. Again, to review it, I think what we'll do is if that's okay with you, Allison, we'll send copies to all the board members so they can take a look at it, so they can provide input things in the next meeting to see if we want to change anything, and we can have a better discussion with you all too, as far as, you know, anything you want to add to that as well, and as well as, you know, the chief deputy as well. So
Yeah.
get them on the same page.
No, I agree.
And then we're close.
It's
I
the
think-
best way to go forward. I think it is too. It's just little things, and I'm just, you know, want to really be careful here, because I think we have a unique opportunity.
Mhm.
And
I
I want
agree.
to keep opportunity.
Rather go
right,
slow and
but-
steady and not rush it.
Yeah, and if you rush it, you got the wrong foot, and I don't think that'd be a time to do this.
Yeah, I agree.
Meeting locations, subcommittee.
It looks good as far as what Julie has come up with here. I propose we vote on Charlotte being the meeting area for February, since that's the one that we have available, and we can kind of work through the rest.
Or is
Since
that-
it looks like just Charlotte and Grant are available, but I see on here that Shatisha said that her room was available over at Burton.
The Charlotte one, would that be the same time, or is that 4 to 7? So it's available from 4 to 7 on the 6th. what meeting times, or what meeting times y'all think would work?
Well, we had said 6 to 7, at keeping the community meetings at 6 for convenience for community members.
If we run over the 7, would that be a hard stop, or is that just in case something was to come up? Would that be okay? Do we know?
I forgot that we decided to move it later, so thanks for reminding me. So you want 6 to 7?
Yeah, if we could,
Is 7 a hard stop for that? Would we have to like be out of the building and walk it up, or?
I'd have to
run over a
ask
little
for
bit?
information, I'm not sure.
Um,
And I would think we should have more seating for more than 20 people too.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I didn't know like Burton one.
after Burton Street. And we had a small room that day.
Yeah, we did have some.
And it was okay, as far as that seating for 20, at the last meeting that we had at Burton Street, it was fine.
Oh,
We don't have a huge attendance in the community meetings, so I think that would be fine. If it's that same one we had last time.
Yeah, I think it was. It was last time. Okay, y'all wanna, I mean, am I being too cautious here, being concerned about the 7 being a hard stop, or do we think we're okay to vote on that for our next meeting?
I think that will be okay.
What about voting, and if that's your first choice, having a backup if that's a hard stop?
Yeah, that was my
Because it
next
may be a
question.
staffing issue.
Yeah, that was my next question,
Yeah.
is if it was if there is a hard stop and we find out later, do we need to have the backup right now? Or is that something we can just say that if we don't, we'll just be back here automatically?
It looks like Burton may be the only backup.
Well, would you be able
As far as the
to,
dates.
would you be able to back it up to 5:30 to 6:30? And then if you run over, start, ideally 6 to 7 is an
I don't see a
option, back up to
problem, because
5:30.
It hasn't been announced, so I
Right.
don't see the problem in doing it that way.
And that would be able to leave you in the same location as a preferred option.
Yeah, I just, for public knowledge, it can get confusing if you have too many options
Right.
listed. So maybe Charlotte's gonna be fine, like I said, you know her,
Yeah.
she's probably okay. So if y'all would like to, we will vote on our February 6th meeting. Somebody make a motion to be February 6th meeting at Charlotte Community Center from 6 to 7.
Do you want to do 5:30 to 6:30 just to be safe?
For some wiggle room.
Because then we run to 7, 6 and a half hours, we need to make it 6.
Follow that?
Yeah, I think 5:30 is a good time.
Okay.
Start it up. It's a good call.
So 5:37. Okay. So you want to make a motion for that?
I make a motion that Charlotte be our meeting space for February 6th, 5:30 to 7 p.m.
Can I get someone second?
My second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Anything else? February 6th. Julie, will you just double check those times, just to make sure, well, you've already got it 46, or 47, so but just maybe let them know in case they need it before then, that we won't be there until 5:30.
Charlotte, February 6th, 5:30 to 7-ish.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. The subcommittee on police and community. Jerry?
Yeah, I can give an update. So Michael and I met earlier this week. I can kind of give an update on what we talked about. Some of what we talked about is, some of the pop-up markets and different outreach events that are already happening are really helpful. But sometimes they don't always lend to having a deeper, richer conversation about community relationship with police. So we talked about trying to have some sort of event, whether that's here in this meeting, out in community centers, or when we're going out into the community, or whether it's a separate meeting, or maybe connecting with some of these community groups that community liaisons are already connecting with. And really trying to ask some more in-depth questions and have both law enforcement and community members present. And one of Michael's big things that he voiced was a hope to have that event where law enforcement could maybe come in plain clothes to potentially address some power dynamics and help people feel more comfortable. That was something that he really emphasized as a desire for the event. And then as we sort of talked through what that might look like I was talking about putting sheets of paper on the wall with different questions so that folks could answer those with some more anonymity to also feel a little more comfortable and get conversations started, sort of like workshop style. And then later that evening, I kind of had the light bulb moment that what we were really talking about is sort of that development of an outreach engagement plan that Carol brought up before, and having that conversation, and maybe us helping to facilitate something like that, or finding community members that are already skilled facilitators, like the Center for Participatory Change, that feels like something that's pretty on mission for them, and those folks are really skilled facilitators and things like that that could really help develop a really in-depth conversation that doesn't deteriorate or end up in any type of back and forth that doesn't end up being productive. So to help have someone guide that conversation, whether that's us or a facilitator, whether that's in these community groups that APD is already connecting with or here. We just met over lunch, so we didn't figure out all of the logistics of where or when exactly that would happen, but that was the framework we started to kind of have more discussion about. So that's what we were moving towards or starting to talk more about, and wanted to kind of throw that out to everyone else, was what I wanted to bring to the table, and then begin to figure out more of the details and fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I think having someone like from the center you're talking about, being the mediation person, a trained mediator, I think that is a wonderful idea. I personally would recommend that. I think it'd be helpful. I think y'all are on the right track, getting something together, and maybe, I don't know if we could leverage that list of people that the APD are already having meetings with, and talk to them and say, hey, how about a big meeting for all of Asheville? Maybe that's a possibility too, to help shape what a meeting would look like. Schedule it out. Is that possible? That we can make contact with them?
Since I'm so new, I'm not sure what the goal of that subcommittee is. So I'd like to know more so I can better recommend what I don't want to say yes or no until I know what it is, and then how best to direct you. Obviously, we want to help facilitate whatever it is you're trying to achieve. I just don't know what that might be until I know a little bit more about.
Yeah, I think the main goal of the subcommittee is really to develop a deeper relationship between the community and law enforcement, a really positive, trusting relationship, and help build that up. And so I think part of that, like step one, is really getting a pulse on different neighborhoods and communities within Asheville of where are we even at with that to begin with, and getting like what is the baseline and where, and then going from there to problem solve and kind of help to develop relationship further. So like Coffee with a Cop, like the pop-up markets, like some of those things that we're already doing, but maybe having a more explicit, direct conversation around that, like in a specific space, to really go more in depth in that conversation on a larger scale.
Well, I'm available to help you with that, and if that's reaching out through the liaison program, I can work with you on that.
Okay, and I think part of that was we were reaching out to John Everhart, but then he transitioned. So one other thing I think is we're looking to connect with, there's been a lot of transitions, but figuring out who might be a good APD representative to help us connect with officers, captains, and help get some buy-in and work together on that, really like in collaboration.
Because that's what we talked about, is like shaping the conversation around what is policing in your community, for different communities. Wayne, do you have any off the top of your head that would be an APD liaison? That we could-
Well, I think that may change. I think, quite honestly, probably if we're looking at these 15 groups, I would go to that point person to facilitate, because they're gonna have the connections. And that's where I would start. And one of the other things that I'm doing currently with our executive staff is reassessing the committees and groups that we have and appointing staff members. So I don't want to off the cuff say I recommend myself or Captain Gudak or Deputy Chief Comstrats, because I know already some are overloaded. So I also want to make sure anyone that we look at, in addition to kind of help coalesce the 15, will have the capacity to do that. So I'll get back to you. Probably in that vein, I'd like to be one of the captains or deputy chiefs for myself, but we'll suss that out. But I think easily for Jerry and ourselves, and probably going to be the most responsive, we're going to be the ones that are directly involved with those groups. That's when you want to identify.
Does that give you what you need, Jerry? Is there anything else we can do to help y'all with your community?
No, I mean, I think that's helpful. Just kind of knowing that that's a good starting point, and then just working with Michael to kind of figure out how to best set up the logistics and the details. My wheels are still just turning about it, getting back into the swing of things, because the community liaisons in these groups that are already meeting seem like a great space that already exists, instead of trying to create a new space. So just thinking about how that would work. We'll work on the details, and hopefully we'll have more to update y'all on next month.
Yeah, it's a deeper conversation.
Mhm.
So I appreciate the difficulty of that. Okay, at this time, we want to introduce any new business.
Can I, before that, it's an old business.
I'm sorry.
The status of the mediation training. Are we still interested, or?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, we are. It's like I said, with the holiday and everything, I couldn't get up. That's part of what I was referring to when I said with a day on the framework for the mediation proposal. Part of that is reviewing all those documents and the legalities that Blake has addressed, and the other part is contacting some of the mediation people, one of which you were kind of providing me, and
Yeah.
that's the part I haven't got to do.
Okay, I was just checking
Yeah,
in.
yeah, no, we definitely are interested in that. I think that's, gonna be
It's a
a key
big
piece
part
of
of
this. Yeah, it's one of
I
the
didn't
largest
give you that
pieces of
email
it.
information.
Yeah, you gave it. Thank you. Okay, anything else before we move on to new business then? Before we do that, I just want to mention it is that time of year where the temperatures are changing. We've talked about that before, and with people outside, just watch out for your neighbors. You know, you don't know how it goes out, you don't know how people are, so knock on your neighbor's doors. And I'm gonna do a shameless plug here. Asheville does not have any shelter that will take transgender individuals. So it's a real shame, and I'm just calling it out because it's a community that isn't being served in a way that is kind of ridiculous.
Allison, to that point, I know there's no standing shelters, but should the Red Cross open a warming shelter or warming reception center, everybody and anybody is welcome there. So they're not open all the time, but they would be welcome there.
Are they allowed to sleep over at these warming centers?
It depends if it's a shelter or a
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on what the county has asked for.
Right, yeah. Yeah, when it becomes an overnight stay, that's when we get into the issue.
So if it's an overnight stay, it's an overnight stay for anybody. It's just whether or not it's requested to be an overnight, and that depends on several factors that are not the Red Cross's determination. But they do open warming centers and warming shelters, depending on the request. And I can talk with you offline on that.
Yeah, I'd like to ask about that because every conversation I've had with the Red Cross during those times is it's explicitly, if it becomes an issue, if it becomes a situation where people are issued cots to sleep in, and it becomes a sleeping event, and they break those into gender segregation, that's when the issue occurs. Trans people are not, you can't stay with the gender you are, you have to go with the gender that they are evaluating what you are, what your documents may show you are.
I'm happy to talk to you offline, because I don't know that this is the form, but that was my previous employer, so I'm very familiar with their rules and regulations, and I'm happy to talk with you, but yeah.
Love to.
Yeah.
That's a thorn. Thank you. Does anyone have any new business that they would like to propose for the next meeting that we need to discuss it in this meeting now, or table for the next meeting? All right. Well, then we can do the committee member regional concerns, and we can just go down the list here. Go left to right. Blake,
Yeah.
concerns.
Nothing to report on mine.
North. Nothing really on my end, but I haven't been around a lot, so.
I haven't had any concerns brought to me.
I haven't either, but I've also been out of town most of December.
Nothing of these, I know of.
Well, really quiet, isn't it? Okay.
The only thing, I don't have a neighborhood update, but what I would say is we put out a press release recently about convenience store armed robberies and just awareness, and that's kind of hidden across the city. So just to update your community and have them link, it's on our, what site is it, the website? Or,
AshevilleNC.gov, you can go to.
So you can look at
press
those posts, but
releases.
it's the descriptions vary, but I mean, typically it's a black hoodie, black clothes, and it's just but we don't have any solid people we're looking for, so just be aware of anywhere from Montford to
Across
East
the city.
Asheville to, it's hidden similar modus operandi across the city. But just be aware of that and take that back to the community. So if you see someone in all black kind of hanging around and running from a convenience store, which is 90% of what they're hitting is convenience stores, that may be worth a phone call.
Do you suspect it's the same person that you know of?
Yeah, I think there's one or two people involved, but I think it's just based on the descriptions, and we do have some still photos that we sent out of store surveillance, but the face is usually pretty well obscured, so it's kind of hard to, in gloves, so it's hard to identify particular individuals.
Can I add something? I don't know if I'm supposed to speak, but I've seen that our city's website, which is sometimes frustrating to use, it's in beta testing for a new version, and it looks like it's gonna be really cool, so I'm excited to put that up there.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well then we'll open up at this time to public comment. If, Julie, I think may have a sheet, and if you're not on the sheet, you can still speak. It's not a problem at all. We'll just wait until everyone that is on the sheet is addressed, and then go with anybody else.
Just Michael.
Michael? You got nothing, Michael? Or you just sign it by, you just sign it by habit?
It's always a question mark.
Yeah.
It's never a yes or no, it's a question mark. In my persona as a Santa Claus, I want to thank APD for allowing me to break into all of these homes one night every year and not get arrested. Thank you so much.
We appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, and I'm gonna use the public comment time as a member of the public. I want to thank the APD also. There was right before the holidays started, they were going around and ticketing cars in the neighborhood for parking the wrong direction. I actually got a ticket because I parked the wrong direction.
You're welcome.
And Wade, I'm mad you didn't answer your cell phone. But the officer was just super nice. He was actually giving people a chance to move their cars. I just wasn't around, and I was gone, like $6 came back, and there was a ticket on the car, and then he came back through. And but he was really nice, and just answered all the questions. And I saw that he was going up and knocking on people's doors, and saying, hey, you know, you need to move your car on to keep your ticket. And you know, I just thought that was nice. He wasn't just writing a blank ticket, throwing it on the car. He was going way above what he needed to. So,
Good to hear. Thank you.
yeah, I appreciate that. Even though I didn't appreciate my ticket. Okay, well, does anyone like to speak? Anyone besides Carol? And I can say that because I
I'll
love
wait
you,
my
Carol.
turn.
I can say that because I love you, Carol.
Thanks, Allison. Couple of questions and, the organizational structure way as it relates to the community liaison and these connections, given that you've got executives, does that mean that this is in the operational chain of command, and so as part of the routine operational requirements, discussion, analysis, that's where this effort falls? So it's integrated, it really is integrated operationally?
I'm not clear on what you're trying to ask, Carol.
So what I'm trying to get
Are
at.
we practicing that?
Let's take it all, we'll try again. And I'm just trying to reinforce that you've got, that this is a real effort to integrate what could otherwise be called sort of standalone community relations into the operational components of the department.
Yes, well, I think, yes, it's departmental wide. So yes, it is being implemented within operation, and staff that have impact throughout the organization are involved with the various groups, not each group, but so organizational wide it is operational, and yes, we are going beyond just the meetings and touching base. So yes, it is an exchange back and forth.
I find it really encouraging as this evolves, so I'm grateful for that being put forward. And is that information also about the promotions and all, is that on the website? You've seen of the website.
I don't think it is yet, but actually I meant to mention something earlier. We have not conducted our formal, they've been promoted, but we usually do a promotional ceremony. And that's still pending with the date. It's likely going to be a while off, but and that just occurred last week with those promotions. So there's the notifications, internal, external. But yeah, that will be shared publicly, who's been promoted and where they're going.
And what I really want to bring forward, Allison and Shauna are aware, to invite members of CPAC and to reopen conversation with the department about participation in the Racial Equity Institute training. Some of you know I have been from the outset one of the core organizers of bringing the racial equity workshops to Asheville, a 2-day deep dives into really the origins of racism in this country and the impact for substantial community relations is obviously pretty clear. We've had some challenges at some times in the past. We have worked through them. I think they would be valued. We have just set the dates for the 2019 workshops, the first of which will be in March, and they tend to fill up fairly quickly. But if it's appropriate way for me to follow up more directly with you for further conversation, congratulations, Interim Chief. As well as to be able to provide additional information to current CPAC members. I would really like to actively encourage that participation and explore with you the best ways that we can make it happen, both for the committee as well as for department personnel.
Can I ask for clarification on something or question?
Well, it's typically we do not elicit feedback back and forth between the committee and public, so if you have a question, I would recommend we wait till after the meeting to keep the conversation, yeah, just to make it fair for people.
Can I have an extra minute?
You didn't use yours. Yeah, or Carol, but I have to ask Carol, are you done?
I am, thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Carol, for reminding us about the REIs, what they're doing. It's really important work.
And as a board member of Building Bridges of Asheville, I will also bring that forth as a possibility for you all to attend. We have our next session in 2 weeks. Sign-up has just opened up. We also fill up very quickly. Similar kind of looking at race relations, but very much more Asheville specific. A lot more involvement in history of race relations in Asheville and how that impact is carrying forward to today.
And I've been a participant. It's a very good program.
There's your endorsement. Would anyone else like to address the committee at this time?
Hi, my name is Britt. I live in Leicester. I didn't hear anything about policy. Quentin ran a campaign on 21st century policing. I know that's probably definitely in his direction. I don't know, I'm just not clear kind of where this committee has an impact. If no policy is being discussed, if there's really no oversight over the police department, since it's being managed by the city manager. I don't know. I get kind of annoyed sitting in these meetings, and I'm glad you brought up REI. It is an important thing, but I definitely question kind of how that works, given the event that happened last year with Sharon Smith being kicked out. For a white organization or for a racial organization to promote racial equity, but then to have someone removed because they spoke out of turn, that really bothers me. And I don't want to focus on that. I definitely want to talk to you at some point about that, Carol, because it drives me nuts. It really makes me angry because that's white supremacy. I get to watch you walk around town schmoozing, and I know I'm getting kind of personal, but it sickens me. It really sickens me. So to know that the city's going to continue to interact with REI when they haven't done anything, it just gets messy really fast with a lot of this stuff. So I want you guys to keep your teeth out. We need this 2019, and I'm kind of off the heels of a personal incident earlier this week. I was at a meetup, and folks think it's okay to just use the N-word and cheat and these. Or it's like this is in the people's minds that this white supremacy, racial stuff isn't a problem. So it's a problem, and I know you guys are here. I know my heart is a schism in it, and on one end I know we're all doing what we can, but on the other end it's not enough. So thank you.
Thank you. And like I said, I don't want to do the back and forth, that wouldn't be fair, but please come up to me after the meeting, and I'd be happy to discuss the powers of this committee and what we are chartered to do under law in North Carolina and Asheville, and how that interfaces with the police department, and share with you some of the things that we're working on.
Just to finish, there's just not equal footing between the community and the police. I'm an abolitionist. I'm a slavery abolitionist, which means that slavery is still in practice. Private prisons, federal prisons, jails, immigration detention centers, they are passed through for labor. And so how are we going to fix any relationship between the community and the cops when there's this bigger piece to it that neither party even has a hand in, or has the only thing the cops do is a funnel to make money. So yeah, that's another piece. I mean, if that's what's to be done, is this relationship, that's a part of it. How is that going to be dealt with? How's that going to be understood and abolished? I mean, even on North Carolina's Constitution, there's a statute to allow slavery. So I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. And like I said, I encourage you to come ask and be happy to fill in some of those details at a time that makes it fair so we don't have the back and forth, to be fair to everyone. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? All right, well, someone make a motion to adjourn?
Hey,
Hey,
Allison.
Julie.
What are our goals for the community meeting? So what
For Shiloh, when we go there. That's actually a really good point. Were we gonna make that, were you asking if we were gonna make that an official meeting like we've done, or were we gonna make it a goal-oriented meeting, like a back and forth between the community? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, because I'm not sure the format, if we're gonna do it kind of like this, or if we're gonna approach it totally different.
It's usually an open forum, like we sit in
Yeah.
a circle, it's not formal at all. Community members really just come in with their specific concerns for that community, because it's really based on being more in touch with that particular community. That's why we try to do the different satellite areas in different parts of the city. So, one thing we never got back on was doing like the training on working those stats. We had talked about that when that PowerPoint was presented, was maybe using one of the community meetings to do that. But for the first one, let's just look at what kind of interaction we have, how many people we have show up, and just do an open forum.
Did you, in the spirit of that, we did it as a kind of a round table kind of thing, a discussion. Are we requesting that the police presence be there or not be there, just so we can let everybody know what to expect? Because you don't want to showing up going, oh, I thought the police would be here. Why are the police
I guess
there?
that's one of those staffing questions, if there's someone available to be there, so it would be great, but like you said, sometimes we don't have them there. We do need to announce that.
Because I think.
Because there was an issue before, right?
Yeah, that was the thing. I just don't want people to be mad if they expect someone to be there. And I know you said you are handing off some of your duties, and I imagine this will probably
Yeah, he
be
said that.
one for next month.
Likely.
Yeah, I figured, wait. Try not to be offended. So,
So are you available?
will you be available next month on the 6th?
All right.
All right. Okay, so it sounds like, Julie, to answer your question, it will be a full committee meeting with police presence, but an informal one, like we've done in the past, an informational one that we discuss with the community if they have any issues that they'd like to bring forward at that time. But I'd still like to have updates on our
Yeah, I would
individual
say that would be
committees.
our future agenda item.
Right.
Discussing those three other off-site
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, and we can just have quick updates on our 3 subcommittees also, but try to keep the role as formal. So, does that answer your question?
Okay. Is there any other form of advertising that you guys want to do or we can do to get the word out?
It would be really nice if we could. That's one of the things we struggle with. It usually takes, unfortunately, can get the most turnout when there's something catastrophic happening. Next door. Yeah. Are we advertising it on next door? Do you know the city liaison?
We can.
I think next door is good. You know what? We should also get in touch with the officer. The community liaison officer. And
Yes.
have them spread that. Who was that? That was that like Brian Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlotte. Yes.
What school is it? So, would someone like to volunteer to get in touch with Lieutenant Brown to see if we can get the word out also through his contacts?
We can deal with that.
Will y'all do that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's even better. That's great, thank you, I appreciate that. So we've got next door, and we've got Lieutenant Brown is gonna spread the word to.
Facebook and.
Yeah, and we can just also then encourage everybody word of mouth. I think it's probably more of an outreach than we've done before. in its kind of official capacity, so that would work. Okay, well, we had a motion to adjourn, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.